that
It was like that, but you've said it differently and it's funnier.
Firstly, I applaud you on that noble ambition. We need, and as you Mr. Kaliga was saying, this is a training ground for leaders, and these are the aspirations we should have, the ambition, the scales of ambitions. It should be to that extent. So congratulations, sir. Now to the question, to that specific question on what you should delete, and that's a very valid concern. Again, we know that states now use social media as a way to surveil their citizens. Again, very tragic. And the social media companies, as I've said, these are not good people. They're not our friends. They will not hesitate to sell your data to the highest bidder. Chinese government, and we know that TikTok was beholden to the powers of the Chinese Communist Party. It would not hesitate to sell your data to them, right? So these platforms will not hesitate to give your data to a state or a government if it asks them for information about you, and then they prosecute you. Recently, the US government has a new requirement that if you apply for a visa, they will look at your social media history. So, that's how we're getting to your question, that your social media history, unfortunately, it's open, it's out there, and I don't want to, my friend, don't censor yourself just to impress people, but I'd say post good things, post things that you will not be ashamed of 10 years from now.
Maybe I had certain life, maybe I had certain but the thing that was I could have been it, but there's a way people hold forest, find a way to give them out. If I hit it, if I didn't it, but they come out.
So, I think he asked a good question. I just want to add to what he was saying. I forgot to respond to your question earlier. He had asked, what does a safe online space look like? And now, to begin with what you're saying, the internet does not forget just because you deleted your account. And the servers are still running with the information, because we have these databases in Ireland, in California, in wherever, and backup sites of the backup sites of the backup sites. So just to remind you that now that you have seen the lights, how do you create a safe online space for this aspiration you have? And the rest of us, you're going to become a mother sometime, you're going to become maybe a priest, you could get the calling, and now you look at your history. Well, we don't know what 10 years, because there's a saying that says every 7 years we have evolved. So you are allowed to change what you believed back then. However, this, when it's already out there, I want you to think of your online platform as your house. As your house. There are people who come to your home and they stay at the veranda. There are people who come to your home and they'll sit in the couch. Others will go all the way to the bedroom. So your own home has layers to trust. Why are you sharing all your life to people that don't know you, right? And your children, your family. This is the digital footprint you were talking about. If I'm an ethical hacker, for example. If I am given you as my target, I could just be around your site for like a month or 3 weeks, depending on how your online life is for me. There are people that I will look for a year and I'll find nothing. Then there are people whom I'll just spend 2 days or 3 days and I already have a plan for what I'm going to do or what I'm going to send them. So I want you to imagine that you are not very far away from being a victim. Someone can decide that I want to know about this person, or you are applying for a job and now we have to do a background check. So all these things happen. So think about your online platform as your house. You have a padlock. Is it strong? Sometimes you even have two. So you look at your passwords. Do you have two-factor authentication? Can your social media platform first send out an OTP to your email so that someone can get in? For example, if I compromise your phone, can I access your social media? Can I access your email? Can I access your things, right? Do you have a facial lock? Do you have a biometrics, right? Do you know that you can update your iOS and get better updates for security. So stuff like that. Think about your social media as your house. So you may not be able to delete some of the history you have, but you can start creating a better profile. Yes, you still have the question.
So, would you be advisable for me to have like a faceless account across my platform?
No, especially if you're planning to commit crime.
No.
No, because these things can always link. First of all, there are patterns. Because now we have AI, the gentleman has told you, we shall study the pattern. I'll tell you there are celebrities who think they are not known, but we know their accounts. People know their accounts. So faceless accounts don't protect you if you are trying to build a certain profile. But if it's just for leisure and just following sites, maybe you don't want to be connected to you, like it's just your life really. It's okay. I don't want to be here and be the moral compass. However, this is how online life works. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. To add on what my colleague over there has said, I understand he has very strong opinions about, of course, Elon Musk. But what we need to understand is, in regards to AI, of course, with humanity, there's both good and there's both good and evil, right? And these artificial intelligence models are trained on all this data, all the good things that happen in this world and all the bad things that happen in this world. So it's a matter of who controls how that information is portrayed to you as somebody who is using or engaging with artificial intelligence. So, and just that it's fortunate or unfortunate that the most powerful people are the ones who are able to actually collect this information, structure it, control it, because this information has to actually be controlled. Because we all know, as a chemist, or when you study chemistry, you can learn how to create a bomb. Okay? But how are you going to control artificial intelligence from giving somebody this information of how they can actually create a bomb for their own ideas? So it really just depends on the person who has the capacity to control the kind of information that comes to you who is engaging with artificial intelligence. And of course, adding on to, you asked something about having a faceless account and being able to be anonymous online. But like it has been mentioned, there's a digital footprint that you have. There are many ways data can be collected about you. You might think you use social media facelessly, but use other platforms. Use Google, use other devices. Yeah, YouTube and things like that. And all these things are actually collecting your information. So you might be using the same device that you use to give some of your data to Google or engage with Google and YouTube and stuff like that. But this device also, you might find it gives the same information. It's the same device that you're trying to use to operate this faceless account. And to some extent, these platforms coordinate, and you'll find that data has been shared from this platform to this platform, and you'll find it is actually easier for somebody who is on top to actually know that this account belongs to such and such a person. So I think the only way you can actually avoid that is just stay off social media or just don't go digital or something like that. Because as long as you're connected to the internet and you're engaged with technology, definitely your data is being shared and collected. So it just depends on who has access to it and who can be able to expose you. I just wanted to elaborate a little on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do agree with you, Timothy, that this country, the internet is really owned by capitalists, and they're making money out of all the information that we need. And also, just a disclaimer out there: for the right price, all your data is available. For the right price, that is something that is not new to people out there, but maybe just because of ignorance and we are not really intentional about what you put onto the internet. When you were speaking, you did
talk about regulation. We did talk about regulation, which brought a thought to mind around TikTok China and TikTok US, and how the Chinese government is using TikTok to really define the livelihoods of the people within China. It is also being used to define the education system. It is being used to define different sectors, but at the benefit of the government and not the people, right? And this is more like a national law or something of the sort. So how would you address specific regulation that is really not which is not beneficial to the people, but only feeding into one side of it, right? And then also coming back to Uganda, we do not have any law on the AI. If you read through the digital transformation roadmap, it doesn't have anything to do with AI integrated anywhere, whether it is in the skilling, whether it is in innovation, anywhere. It really doesn't have anything to do with AI. However much this was something that was released at a point where AI was booming and it was at its peak, we really don't see AI at any point. Then also, what would you highlight more about that bit of regulation, and then also maybe to Jabulon, how does the lack of regulation and policy within the country really affect innovation? Because you said you do deal with a lot of innovation and all that. How does it really affect innovation? And this would also speak to maybe some of the business people in the room. So how does that lack of an AI policy speak to innovation? Because you'll find that people we're using the artificial intelligence, but when say an international law that we're just trying to adopt within the country, and then you'll find that now if it comes to social media, the shutdown that we all recently witnessed last month, and how it affected lives after. I think we did see that bit of a shift, and maybe to Femius, what security risk is there around the lack of a regulated internet usage within the country?
Well, thank you very much. You've asked about regulations and policies regarding development and implementation of AI systems or just applications. So one thing I do understand is that, of course, we do have data privacy laws and acts in place in Uganda. Of course, there are copyright laws, privacy acts, and things like that. Maybe what I can point out is that the implementation and enforcement of these laws might not be so strong within the country, because when I come down to some of the things that some of the activities that we perform at my company, when it comes to developing applications and systems for users, you find that in most cases, what you do is you self-regulate on how you collect data from users. Somebody will come to you that probably they need a website. And we all know these days websites help engage businesses with their customers. And before you actually request for or you inquire about a business through a website, there's a way you have to submit some sort of data. So it's upon whoever is running that system, the kind of data that they collect from you or from a user. But you find that sometimes you might be asked for your name, your phone number, your address, sometimes even more sensitive information like your ID details and stuff like that. So I just hope that we would probably have some type of government regulation above all of us that can regulate the amount of data that is collected about a citizen within this country. And the other thing is that majority of the information that is collected about the citizens in this country are collected by, of course, these external companies. Google collects a lot of information about Ugandans. Facebook, social media, they collect a lot of information about Ugandans. And all this information is not stored within the country. It's stored outside of this country. So I feel that the government does not have a lot of control about the kind of information that is collected about the citizens of the nation, because should the US government decide to, let's say, ask for information about, specific information about Ugandans, it's not guaranteed that Google will actually decide not to give up that information. So maybe our policies within the country should be strengthened to regulate how these external stakeholders collect and use our information. I would actually prefer if we had our own data centers within the country that would allow information to be collected, and then it can be decided on how that information can be used. So regarding the policies, I feel that government should do more on how data is collected. So like I was saying before, we most times find ourselves having to self-regulate on how we collect information. That is why sometimes you find that when you're giving your information to a certain website, you have to at least ensure that it has a privacy policy or some sort of terms and condition. Now, a privacy policy determines how the amount of data you collect from the user, how you store that data, and how you use that data. So you find that in a privacy policy, you're kind of trying to promise to the user that this information is going to collect from you, and this is what I'm going to use it for. And then you try to promise that, I'm not going to sell this information to a third party in case they try to ask me for it. But how do we know? We do not know whether this self-regulation actually works. So the policies from the government probably have to be strengthened to ensure that the way information is collected from users is more secure and stored in a more secure way, and it should be seen how this information can actually be used or given out when they need to do that. So that's what I will probably say regarding your question. Thank you.
Thank you. So, sorry. So yeah, you have really created a very nice preamble to start from. The fact that you mentioned the lack of the regulations and what that implies for us. However, I just want to know, like, from the audience, do you know what your rights are when it comes to your data? Does anyone know what it means or how you are referred to when it comes to data? Do you even know who you are? Yeah, you have no idea. But you see, every time you try to open an app or to download one, it's going to tell you, click on terms and conditions. Sometimes you even have to first read down. Contacts, location. Well, you are that owner of this data. It is your information. You even have the right to walk into a bank and tell them, I gave you this data 10 years ago. You told me after 10 years you're going to discard it. Why are you still using my information? You have that right. So I want to start from there. The fact that there is no knowledge for all of us, as the owners of the data and the people we expect to regulate us. Look at, if I asked you to give me a picture of a politician in this country, you probably can draw them. They're either old, big stomach, tall, wearing a suit. The politicians who are creating these regulations for us, we are hoping that they are able to create them for us. But do they even know what they're regulating? So the fact that we have no knowledge, we are already in a problematic state. So when it comes to regulating data and information and technology, I would like to tell you that Uganda is not alone. I have done a program between Uganda and the US where we were studying how they do their regulations. And we traveled to different states and we learned that they have the same challenges. The same problems we have, they have. only that ours are a bit, worse than them. So they have they have incentivized the public sector to work with the government, which we don't have here. So another problem we have is that there is no need for the government is not involving the public in this whole process. So they sit down in the boardroom and they decide, okay, we've seen people using AI. I think this is what they should do. Okay, now let's put out a paper and this is the rule. So now you don't know what the people on the ground are doing and you're doing things which are detached. So what it means is that as a developer, I'm going to try and figure out a way, how do I maneuver this paper of yours that you've given me and still get my way, like how he talked about the evil people who run these tools, right? So we struggle with engaging the public, and this goes all the way to even the superpower countries. Public organizations have no need. Okay, they don't want to tell you, for example, we have been compromised. There is a regulation that says if your company has been hacked, if data has been exposed, you have to inform the data owners that your information, for example, when Yahoo got an issue and information has been breached, this is a real issue. When your information is breached, it can turn up in, because I need to explain these things. Why should you care about your data? Why should we even care? We're talking about information and your names and your passwords and your emails. You might think, but it's not that important. I just need the app. Why are you guys talking about this data privacy and regulations? We use password lists. We use email samples. And these things are sold on the dark web. So when you enter your information in an app that is third party to an app that is collecting information, this information is sold on the dark web. And when we are testing for maybe passwords, combinations, email possibilities, for example, that's how you can see that this email has been found in a compromised maybe activity. Because you put your email in a certain app that you don't even remember, and it's in your phone, you don't even use it. So if you're not using an app, you needed it for one time, delete it. You understand? Because you put in all this information in so many apps, and most of them are collecting information, especially like the pop-ups you mentioned. You can't continue, but you need the service, and you need to put in your information. So those are the challenges, because there's no regulation. And then the other issue is also we have a tick box mentality, whereby, for example, I have ever worked on a project where I needed to write terms and conditions, the product, how to use the product, and all that. So imagine you don't read those documents, but as an application owner, I have to put them in because that's what is required. So I will do everything that protects me as an application owner. So whatever is in that document has little for you as a data set or as a data owner. So I will protect myself. That's why when these companies are sued and they bring out the terms and conditions, you will actually find a clause that says, however, this is in the terms and conditions. That's why we do it. That's why we sell to you. That's why we are able to tell you that we think you will use this Vaseline well, and you talk about something in the morning, and in the evening you see an ad on Instagram, right? It's quite scary, but it's real. So we have that tick box mentality, and it's really a problem. And then finally, there is also sometimes over-regulation. So on the flip side, for example, startups, they could struggle with all the heavy requirements they need to fulfill before bringing technology. First of all, you can't regulate what doesn't exist. Technology is built from innovation. We see a problem, we want to solve it, then we build for it. So usually regulations they're coming after. So that's usually how regulations are coming. And it's a problem because if we wanted to do something and went to the regulator, they will always find a problem with it before we do it. So that's why now the overregulation of startups means that innovation is going to be stifled, because now if you have to go to Bank of Uganda to be able to do a gateway, to be able to make payments, and you have all these documents you need to collect, but you don't have all that money. So there is two sides to it, and I think that all of them put us in a bad place. I wish we had younger people doing the work. Maybe the politicians can sit and eat money, then the young people can do the donkey work. It would be nice. But they're the same ones who are, when you look at, for example, you see an AI summit, and you look at the representatives of Africa, and they are, I didn't say their name, but yeah. And that's it. Thank you.
Before Timothy responds to the question that I'm supposed to give, I'd like to invite everyone. If one person can go one at a time, there's a cup of tea at the back, and get a cup of tea and come and join us in the conversation. So please don't feel shy, but that is Joseph at the back, and then everyone goes, we can keep the conversation going. As it was getting spicier and spicier, I think we talked about the age bracket of people that are making the decisions, and going back to the AI task force that was created, whose average age was 60. But yes,
Thank you very much for. Oh, yes.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I had a question. In a country like my motherland, Uganda, how is the suing working? Because I remember, I think, was it last year, when Bank of Uganda was hacked, and allegedly saw some money, and it has my information from these other banks that I so and it was actually not the one that came out to say we were hacked, it was a whistleblower. How will I manage to sue such a scenario?
Yeah, so basically, I'm just going to lay out a scenario that applies, then we can talk about the bigger scale of probably Bank of Uganda. So, for example, you are using an app. You've had young people who get loans from some apps, right? And then all of a sudden, everyone in their contact list is receiving a phone call. You've had that, right? And I like that this is a young people conversation, because at least most of us can relate to these things. So when an app like that, first of all, it's the fact that there is no regulation that these kind of apps exist in the ecosystem. They're able to steal money from everyone and even impact people's mental health. So if there was regulation, now let's start from there. You have to understand that we're speaking from a standpoint of we don't even have the rules. Right now, the only rule that is going around is data privacy and protection or something. But I'm hearing people talking about Computer Misuse Act. You abused my business on TikTok. And that's what people are being sued for. And I'm disturbed by it so much because I don't get it. If I say something about your business and you don't like it, manage the PR. That's your business. I experienced your business that way. That's my opinion. It does not make your business. It doesn't mean that your business, my opinion does not mean that your entire business is that. So manage your PR, do a better service, apologize to the person, call them, give them a better service. Anyway, that's beside the point. So if we had regulation, there is no reason why, if that app that I got money from didn't, for example, they don't call your next of kin to tell them that this person has given us your ID and your number, we're going to give them 500,000. That's the first problem. So when now the person is lost, then they start calling everyone in the contact list. So if the regulation existed, that person who got the loan, even if they have not yet paid it, they can walk into the courts of law with an attorney and report the owners of this app and actually say, according to this paper that we signed, this agreement, they had no right to call my people. There was a plan. If I get lost, they can call my next of kin. If the next of kin gets lost, they can do this, because that's how a systemized activity actually works. That's why in countries where there are regulations, you are able to follow your data and actually sue companies who have, especially if they cause you danger. Now, in terms of understanding your rights, it's like when you walk into an organization that is selling something and they're collecting information and asking you for your grandmother's name, asking you for your village, where you were born, you need to understand, why do you need this information? For how long are you going to keep it? But you see, we don't have those, we are lacking those systems. And that's where we would start from to go to court. So it could be a case of the people versus the app, or the country versus the app. And that's how also it would trickle down at scale level in like Bank of Uganda. If there is a lawyer like, I think it's called Malema Birizi, he is able to take on such cases and say the people of Uganda would like to bring Bank of Uganda in this court because our money was taken and and this is the case. But that means now that we also need lawyers who understand technology. We need lawyers who understand technology. We need people in parliament who understand technology so that these things can work. And I think that's the only way it would be able to work in our motherland, Uganda.
And her as well. Thank you very much for the insightful discussion, Dabulon and Famia. It's been very insightful. So all I can really contribute to that question specifically on policy and regulation is, firstly, I think the objective of policy should always be that it's in favor of the user and the people. We might take that for granted, but these companies, the tech companies, are quite powerful. So they very much could lobby to get legislation and regulation passed that is in their favor. So yeah, the ideal situation is that regulation is in the favor of the user. What would that mean? For example, for me, the best case scenario would be one in which social media companies are not allowed to use one's data to sell your advertising. You gave the pertinent example of how you can say something on social media in the morning and then in the evening, yeah, a targeted ad is put to you. I think that is sad. Of course, the danger is that that would undercut the entire business model of social media platforms, which is they run on advertising. But I think, again, that's the tragedy of these things. Maybe what we fundamentally need is a philosophical rethink. Should social media and these platforms be perceived as social public goods rather than as corporate products to be sold to people? And what would that mean? Then that governments should make efforts to take more control and ownership of these. Now, I will have to be careful here. We can look at the example of TikTok and America recently. The Trump administration, actually even before Trump, the Biden administration was making serious efforts to get more control over TikTok. Of course, that has like Cold War dynamics and the rivalry between the West and China. But I think in a way, there was a positive step there. The realization that there's this social media platform called TikTok who handles your citizens' data in a way that is detrimental to their interests as well as the broader security interests of the state. What can we do about it? We take efforts to take back control of that. And the US government then said that TikTok must be owned by Americans. And we've seen how that went. TikTok acquiesced, and now there are serious discussions for there to be an American owner of TikTok in America. So I hope the Ugandan government would consider similar things, of course with the necessary caveats. But in an ideal world, the state should be able to take the necessary strong measures to protect its citizens' interests. I also think that we can look at the example of places like Australia, which said a blanket social media ban for under 16s. I think it is crucial that we protect the children especially, because I mean, I'm guilty. I started using Facebook when I was still a child. Of course, there's a Facebook rule that, you know, nobody under 13. But I think, you know, at that age, I think that there should be regulation of that kind considered here as well. That there should be certain age limits, or an age under which people should not be allowed to access these platforms. Because again, these companies will not hesitate to exploit the vulnerabilities of children in particular to maximize their profit. And to something Fami has mentioned, that people might think that data privacy and security is a trivial matter. I don't need, so what if the companies have this? But we must remember again, as you said, that this is data that these organizations will use to make life and death decisions to some extent. Remember, you can be denied a visa to the US based on the data that X gives to the US government. There's the loan app example. There is, I remember reading this in an insightful book on data, Weapons of Mass Destruction, that in certain places, insurance companies could access data and they could deny you insurance policies. And this is life and death. You could be denied insurance based on data that an insurance company has gotten through dubious means. And that is life and death. So again, it speaks to the absolute urgent necessity of data protection and us as the originators of data asserting our rights. Thank you.
I think we can ask. You can ask, no? You can.
Thank you very much. Since I'm about to step out, I thought I could contribute, not so much of a question, but I think your name, I forgot it. Chagulani. Hey, Jablo. So you mentioned something about policy and something that really I felt pinched when you mentioned that Uganda doesn't have a policy on AI or policies on AI and all that, which I find wrong because I don't have a standalone policy, but we have different fragments in the different documentations, which if you look at even other African countries, I think it's only Rwanda that has a standalone policy. And now Kenya is just drafting regulations and that. So when you say we don't have, actually we have something. To me, who's working on a program which is blockchain and AI based, and it's a national program, looks like we are doing something illegal, which is wrong. After this, but then adding to what he mentioned, and I think also Fabrice gave an example where when they put up the AI whatever task force, the team were all people. I think age shouldn't be a problem. I think it's the expertise. No. Yes, it shouldn't be, because you find that you mentioned something about, for example, lawyers. People could be able to put together a case or something that could be experience matters. We have very many young lawyers in the room here. If I ask, has anyone done any paper, even if it's just on AI, and it's out there that could be able to guide or even could be able to trigger someone in the position of to look for you to say, this person did this paper, you get it, or an abstract on this, and this person need them because they put together a team ABCD. We don't have very many of them. So how do you know if that person was done who had some that they could show? So I think here the conversation around policy and what the government should do, they should start from what have we done. We as young people who think that we know much about this field of technology, we can have these conversations here until tomorrow. We can go to the band, have them over the beer and what. But if we don't go practical, sit down, just dedicate a year or months and do something, do a paper that describes what, for example, give examples that are all from America, but you could be able to do something or write or about something that is local. Bring out your cause, put it out there, publish it. It will move until it gets to the right desk or to the right people who are in those places. So I think that's okay. I think as we're discussing this, it should be a lesson to all of us here that these things affect us, but what have we done to be positioned to be the ones to make the decisions when the time comes? That is, I think, something. Thank you.
And also something that I'd like to could even come out of the question, what is the possibility of working together as everyone here to come up with a paper that will inform usage or regulation of AI and technology within the country? So, food for thought, PLD chair, president, and all the parties in the one thing to add, just go on to that, and remember the for example, currently, because I'm sure you know actually about it, that the government has a very strong detailed national development plan about knowledge, and they're already active. Contracts are being given to funds. Work is going on between the lookup up whereby all the government departments are put together on one platform. AI is one of the key things. That means the things are very many out there. A few weeks ago, we were trying to look out for different people to join the team as staff to be able to put together. But we find that even when you put out the calls to have the people do it, those that have the skills to deliver to what is required, we find that then you have to rely on experts who are very expensive. Sometimes we find that some of those people even fail because the local talent is not good enough, and also some of them are not willing to be capacitated enough to be able to do the task. So it is something, it's an ongoing conversation. Information is out there on socials, and one should be able to see how to be part of these conversations. Every ministry here has gotten a blue paper on money to be able to start out whatever they have to be able to do to fit into this national infrastructure agenda. And they're already active. Contracts are being given out and things are being formulated. But are you part of those? Because that's where it starts. Yes, the project may fail or may be able to get halfway, but at least being part of that conversation over that particular group puts you somewhere to be able to have a voice. When the time comes, we are young today and we are learning these things, but 10 years, 20 years from now, we shall be all, but will you be the right person to look out for that? Oh, this person 20 years ago, they did this, and right now we need this person to come and bring their knowledge.
He'll be the president.
Thank you very much. I have to say it must be nice it must be really nice to have preview of information like this, and we learn like every day that these things exist. However, and I like the fact that you've highlighted most of maybe the knowledge gaps that we could not be aware of what's in the works. And I like what he said, that implementation is still our challenge. Even when we have clauses in different papers and policies, we struggle. Like I just highlighted that you can sue someone for talking about your business because of a paper that was written, if you can skew it very well. So the challenge we have, and right now when we say we love our politicians, we love our leaders, if a young person is given an opportunity to be in that room, to share, to research, because when you say you need to write a paper or research, you need to go around this country, you need to travel, you need material. He has done research. You know how expensive that is. But we have also seen that for a person to do a good job, they need at least their basic needs to be taken care of. So if I am going to do this research for this nation, who is facilitating that? So young people would like to participate, but young people are struggling to survive before they can thrive. So when we talk about the realities of young people, they're creating tools, we want to do this research, we want to improve, and we're not saying that age is a limitation. We're just saying someone who is using this thing daily could feed into this policy that is being made so that it is fit for purpose even 10 years from now. Because when we have our in French it's called ancien, but our seniors preparing for us who are going to be here 30 years from now, and they're preparing according to what was here 40 years ago. It's kind of going to be a disadvantage to us. So I like the call you're making that we need to get involved. However, the incentive should be there to say that we are creating this policy, we are making this research, and we need young people to come and do A, B, C, and D. So all that, because even people in NITA, they have done these things. Sometimes the challenges are beyond the young people who are in these offices. They are there. But the challenges are still to say, at the end of the day, there is a blue paper, you need to implement, let's go, you have 6 months. So the question is, how are we going to do this implementation in 6 months and make sure it is fit for purpose 10 years from now? So all those things are real, and they're our realities, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Kenya. And the microphone goes to the back. We'll come back maybe after her. So, still coming back, I think that there's a bit of back and forth discussion here. I suggested that we use this platform as a form of advocacy and putting out that information that we're gathering through this. And we did say that such work is to do for value, and people need to feel the value and also use the application for some of the things. This brings me back to Alex. Given that we in this spaces, how do you see how best you now, but how best you can now come into, even if you're already started the journey, how can you now come into the spaces and now form such some of these conversations, form some of these papers and things, because there's actually something big, but more contribution from this place that we build tomorrow's leaders, which is one of the key objectives of this discourse. And my senior colleague here, so how do we use such platforms to inform national strategy and national policy? So I would leave that question to President and Rema to follow up on that.
And the PE?
And see how best we can inform and bring this to just a gathering and conversation, but rather something that is much more that makes impact and contributes to national growth. Thank you very much. Over to the lady at the back. Please introduce yourself before we introduce ourselves.
Does it? Good evening. They've told me your PE. My name is Francesca. Who's the PE? Okay, we need to know each other. My name is Francesca Kakoza. I'm a PE of Kampala South. Rotary, Kampala South. But why I mentioned Rotaract is because I was here probably 10 years ago. I was a Rotaractor for Kololo. Yes. And now I'm in Kampala South, and I would like to encourage all of you to look at Kampala South. We are the biggest club in Africa, one of the best also. So please come and join us. Yes, so I wanted to speak to the issue of data protection that you talked about, and to emphasize, I'm also classification is banking legal services. Then when I was in this club, my Rotary Club hasn't felt it necessary to change my classification, but I'm still in law. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the DPPA, which you mentioned, the Data Protection and Privacy Act. Actually, many people don't know about that act, but it has very strong safeguards about data collectors and processors. As long as you collect data, if it's in your phone and you're collecting people's data, it's just that people haven't woken up to sue. But when they wake up to sue, they will sue you. Because as long as you're collecting someone's data, especially personal data, you're supposed to put in safeguards to protect that data. If it leaks, someone will sue you. So it just hasn't happened yet. Ugandans were still sleeping. But when the ambulance chaser lawyers wake up, believe me, they are going to sue you. And we can see from other jurisdictions, actually, like the UK has the, I think, General Data Protection Regulations, GDPR, yes, very, very strong ones. For those ones, you violate someone's personal data, you can be charged over 20 million euros. Yes, actually, it's EU. 20 million euros, a company, of course. So it's 20% of your, 4% of your annual turnover, or 20 million. whichever is lower or anyway, something like that. So those other jurisdictions have actually gone ahead to enforce those rights. Here in Uganda, it's just that we haven't woken up, but please, please be careful. Then secondly, I don't know if you have a data protection officer, President. I hope you do, because you're a company, aren't you? You are, yes. So you're required to have a data protection officer from that Data Protection and Privacy Act. Please, please put that person in place so that they protect the data that you're collecting about your club members. Otherwise, when that office wakes up, you will be penalized. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about is AI. Someone talked about how we're still very far in AI. Not really. Different sectors have actually gone ahead to develop AI regulations. Bank of Uganda has the guidelines. Us in the insurance sector, I work for the regulator, Insurance Regulatory Authority. We are actually also developing cybersecurity and AI regulations. So yes, we're still a little behind, but there's a lot of work going on. And also, just for our comfort, even globally, really, yes, we have the EU, I think AI Intelligence Act or Artificial Intelligence Act or something like that. But most of the other jurisdictions are also grappling with the issue of AI because it keeps changing. You've heard of deepfakes, I'm sure they've talked about them, ethical AI, etc., etc. So there's a lot that's taking place and it keeps changing and evolving. So even them, they're still grappling with that. Now, us in Uganda, we are also catching up. But I can tell you, there are AI regulations. Bank of Uganda has come up with guidelines. Us, we are also coming out with some, and different sectors are also coming up with some. So in terms of the law, we are actually moving ahead to protect our country and to protect you citizens. But please be aware of these laws. And Madam President, Data Protection Office, I sit at the governance committee at the district, and we actually rolled out a checklist for you to fill in. I don't know if you filled, because Rotaract, we got only 20% filling in that checklist. You did, eh? Okay, which is good. And the data protection officer was one of those things that we asked for. So if you don't have, please put it in place so you don't fall in problems. Otherwise, thank you for the opportunity, and it's so great to be back in this club after over 10 years. Thank you.
Very much welcome. And I hope that when you are in this club, you are Viking. So I think we have really exhausted we haven't fully exhausted the conversation. There's still a lot more that we can explore. There's still a lot more that we can uncover. But given that we are running out of time and we are really fast stretched, I'd like to give at least a minute to our guests to give us some closing remarks, and we can further the conversation after on an individual basis, but also not forgetting the one key point of action that we have put here across, how we can explore more of this platform to inform. It doesn't necessarily have to be at national level, but how can we explore, maybe say, this platform to set data privacy or AI guidelines for Rotaract as a whole, or for maybe some government authority out there. So I'd like to, this is a food for thought for the different people I mentioned, President-elect, President, PLD Director, then also PLD Director-elect, and Alex, plus also to our guests that spoke to us today. So without saying much more, I would like to invite you to please share closing remarks within a minute, and then we can further the discussion on a one-on-one.
Well, thank you very much for those few words. And I do understand that the major discussion that we've had here has had to do a lot with data protection and how data is used, how it's protected, and how it's managed. So just like the last submission that was submitted by a member over there, and as you had earlier mentioned, of course, I do believe we do have policies in place. Just that the only thing that's not really put out there is awareness of these policies and also the enforcement of these policies. So as we close, I just urge that as individuals ourselves, let's look at how we submit our data to the systems that we use, and also let's look at how the initiative has been started on how we can actually try and engage with the policy makers on how this information or how these data policies can actually be implemented, because you realize that these days, much as these policies do exist, people just, of course, go ahead and do as they wish. Websites are developed, systems are developed, and you almost feel like there is no regulation as to how you can actually collect this information from users. So if more awareness is made by the policymakers, we can actually be able to implement or enforce these policies that we understand do exist, and people will actually be protected. And just like as she mentioned, if Ugandans wake up, or if we all wake up one day and realize that there are actually policies that protect us on how we submit information to these systems, there will be a lot of suing here and there. So I believe that awareness should be made to the public, to the general public, about their rights on how you can store information, how you can submit information and how it is being used by these systems that actually collect them. So I will close by urging us to all take the initiative ourselves and self-regulate, and also take the initiative to make ourselves aware of the policies that exist to protect us as our information is being passed and used over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So while I'm not at my desk trying to break things, I also run a YouTube channel called the Cyber Cafe, and a platform on LinkedIn that creates awareness. And that's probably why I'm here. And I'm very passionate about user discipline, best practices, cyber hygiene, because it doesn't matter how good the technology we buy or whatever it is, if the users are not educated or they're not doing the best practices, or just, we call them, I think, basics, we can